This is 5.10 Urbanization. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to describe the effects of urbanization on the environment. To do this, we're going to first describe the impact of urbanization, describe methods to combat urbanization, and discuss the idea of urban sprawl. So urbanization is the removal of vegetation to convert natural landscapes into cities. We call this an urban area. So this involves replacing natural surfaces such as grasses and trees with impervious surfaces, which don't allow water to infiltrate into the ground. So if you look at figure 1.1 here, we see that in an area that has a lot of natural surfaces such as grasses and trees, where the soil can be reached by the water, we see evapotranspiration, which is the plants taking in that water and evaporating it back out. The interception of the water by the trees, so the tree canopy intercepting the water from just hitting the ground, and a little bit of surface water runoff, some interflow, which is down in the soil, and then base flow down in our groundwater. But when we add impervious surfaces, those that do not allow the water to penetrate, we get a greater increase in surface runoff because it can no longer penetrate into the ground. Instead, it just flows downhill. With urbanization, we also see an increase in CO2 emissions, and this comes from producing cement, from all the construction machinery going on in urban areas, from the deforestation, which is the loss of future carbon sequestration from cutting down the trees, and the decomposition of those cut trees, which are made of carbon, returns that carbon back into the atmosphere. Additionally, with a large population, you need a lot of landfills to dispose of all the trash that the large population creates, and this leads to greater CO2 emissions. An additional issue with urbanization is what's called saltwater intrusion. So growing populations in coastal cities withdrawing water from their groundwater areas can lead to saltwater intrusion. And we see this in the 180-foot deep aquifer over here around San Jose, south of San Jose, in Monterey County. Over time, from 1944 up to 2011, the saltwater intrusion has gotten really far inland. And this is because the water table has been lowered. So they're taking water, it's allowing the pressure to get too low, allowing that salt water from the ocean to seep into their groundwater. So sea level rise due to the warming of the oceans can also contaminate fresh groundwater with salt water. So we see a typical well is we've got this pressure difference here between the fresh water and the salt water. The people here on the typical well are getting fresh water. With sea level rise, that salt water is intruding into our freshwater area. Now they're getting salt water into their wells, and with overdrafting or overdrawing, they're pulling so much water from their freshwater reservoir that it's actually giving them salt water. Since 2008, the number of people living in urban areas and rural areas, we see here 2008, for the first time our population moved to mostly urban areas. This leads to a cycle. So people moving from rural areas to urban areas move for jobs or entertainment, cultural attractions. These urban areas become more densely populated. So a benefit of this is it minimizes driving and the land use per person because you have more people in a smaller area. So this overall decreases the environmental impact per person in a city. But currently the highest growth is actually in suburban areas, and this is what we call urban sprawl. So cheaper properties in the suburbs lure people out of cities. Because we all have cars, particularly in this part of the United States, it makes it still easy to get from our suburbs to the city, so there's no longer a reason to live in these densely populated urban areas. So as residents leave the cities, because you can get bigger, cheaper houses in the suburban areas, cities no longer have tax revenue from those people. So this leads to a decline in city services. Then the businesses follow the residents out to the suburbs. We're now left with abandoned homes and businesses that are unsightly and cause more people to leave. So solutions to urbanization. We can establish urban growth boundaries, which would be zoning laws set by certain cities preventing development beyond a certain boundary. So again, with urban sprawl, a problem is it's eating up our agricultural land. As we know, this is already limited, and we need that agricultural land to feed the growing population that's going to be residing in these urban areas or the suburban areas. Additionally, you can institute public transportation and walkable city designs that attract residents to stay. So if you include an attractive idea of not ever having to drive, you may entice more people to stay. Additionally, you can use mixed land use. So you can have residential, business, and entertainment areas located in the same area, so people don't feel so isolated. So this is going to increase walkability and encourage people to stay in their part of the city and gives them a sort of a sense of place, like a community. They have their entertainment venues, their restaurants, their stores close to their house. So our goal was to describe the effects of urbanization on the environment. Urbanization can lead to the depletion of resources and saltwater intrusion. Urbanization can increase the amounts of fossil fuels in the environment through the burning of fossil fuels and landfills. So remember, if we have urban sprawl, that's going to cause people to drive more to get from their suburban areas up to the big cities. These urban areas increase flooding due to the impervious structures, so pavement, buildings, parking lot, roads. Urban sprawl is the change in population from rural to urban areas, which has led to environmental problems.